Hi, everybody. Welcome to our August meeting of the Discovery Committee. We can get going and start right off with the chair. We a couple volunteers, but we just want to make sure if there's others or nominations out there to bring that up now, either on the phone or chat.
So I guess I would like to nominate Beth Gallinger from Flatirons Library Consortium.
I will accept your nomination for chair.
That's great. Thank you, Beth, for taking that on. If I don't know how long, if you've been coming to these meetings, but you can see it's fairly straightforward, at least in our current method. So we can proceed with this meeting, and then, if you need to follow up with myself, there might be some protocol with Marmot. I'll have to check with Jimmy or somebody on that.
Yeah, so the next step, unless there's any other nominations, anybody else either want to volunteer or nominate anybody else? If not, the next step is confirmation by the board president, so Jimmy can submit Beth's name for final approval, and then we can have a smooth transition.
Which I will do.
Excellent.
Excellent. Okay. Much more laid back of a process than other boards and stuff that I'm familiar with. I appreciate it.
Yes. And
All right.
Thanks again, John, for all of your work through the years. Sharing.
No problem, and I won't be disappearing. Obviously, I just I've enjoyed doing it. So with that, we can get going on this meeting. It looks like with the things that go on by the next meeting, Beth will take over. So first agenda item is new features and bug fixes.
One of the big things that happened last month, we were preparing for it when we were doing the release or the Discovery Committee meeting last time, was Nashville going live on CarlX. In fact, they had gone live the morning of Discovery Committee. So they're now live. They continue to be live on CarlX. There were, there's a number of little cleanup things we did for them. Won't demo a lot of these, but we'll talk about them a little bit. So on order items, we were just kind of waiting until they were live to see what some of those on order items would really look like. So we updated the indexing so that those all looked right. We had some issues with CarlX web services where we were calling for tens of thousands of items rather than a few hundred. So we made some updates to be a little bit friendlier of a citizen to the CarlX web services, and those seem to be performing much better. There were some quirks with just how charged and overdue items looked on my checkouts page, so it was only showing one or the other. We now show both, so everybody sees everything they have checked out. Same thing with just number of renewals that's showing and the hold queue position. So all just little cleanup things that we did over the course of the month. Most of those are live now already. We didn't wait for the full release for them for that. The one thing I did want to show people is the records to include. So previously in the locations table, especially at consortia or schools and that kind of thing, you've had to go into each location and replicate all of the records to include for all of the books that were available at the library. So especially with side loads, it is something that we wound up forgetting to do a lot, or it's just one more thing that takes a lot of extra effort. So it wasn't necessarily forgetting it, it was just, hey, we've got an extra 20 minutes of updating all of these things for schools. Nashville has
135 locations.
Yeah, 135 locations, so it takes a while to do those, and they're not really easy to do. So we now have a brand new checkbox called Include Library Records to Include, which has a lot of includes in it. And so checking that just will duplicate anything that you have set for the library. So it works great for those common things like, hey, all of our schools are getting all of the capstone books. All of our schools are getting all of the book flicks. We just want to copy those. So this copies them all and saves a bunch of setup time, makes life easier. So especially consortia and schools, that's a really nice thing.
So just to be clear on that, having that clicked on, we would, in that setting there, the capstone row and the book fix row wouldn't need to be here on the location level.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so we could delete those. The only trick, like for the capstone, we probably wouldn't want to delete that because it's got a specific value to match in terms of inclusions. But we could delete certainly the book flicks line because that wouldn't be necessary. Any quick questions on that, or I will turn it over to Pascal to talk about Anne Arundel.
One question, Mark. And if you leave the capstone line, does it supersede what might be above about capstone?
I need to double check that actually.
Okay.
I believe it would be an addition, so it would potentially include both all of the records from the library system as well as the location. So,
Okay.
yeah, good question. All right, Pascal.
So we were also working on Anne Arundel Discovery implementation. To do that, we've set up their production server. You can now go browse to catalog.aacpl.net to view what will become their production PICA catalog. Few of the cleanup work that we did over this release is we added the ability for customizing interlibrary loan links. So previously we had Prospector for Colorado Library and didn't really support anything else. So now we have the ability for non-Prospector libraries to include a link to their a link to their interlibrary loan search service. So for example, you see here I have a search that had no results, and at the bottom it shows the link for Anne Arundel's interlibrary loan system called Marina. The way you set that up is, under PICA configuration, library systems, go to your library, and now we have a new section called interlibrary loaning, which will contain the name of it will have these two new boxes, interlibrary loan service name and URL. You need to have both of these filled out for it to turn on, and if you do have them filled out, it will turn on that link. For Colorado Library, the Prospector will still work. You just need to, just with Prospector, all you have to do is have this switch on here. And then this will also show up on results with all search pages. So if we do another search, it will be at the bottom.
This is Joe with a question. On that Prospector box right there, when this code goes out, we need to go in and do that, or is it defaulted on for Colorado?
If it's on already, it'll remain on.
Great, thank you.
And so if we look at the bottom of the search results, it'll show the same thing. Another thing we did for Anne Arundel is to finish up the...
I have a question. This is Joe Hunter. Would Swift be something you could put in there or no?
I think we should try it. I can't say offhand, but we could try it in the test system.
Okay.
Any other questions about the interlibrary loan link? We also did self-registration for Symphony ILS. So for Anne Arundel, they can have their patrons can do a self-registration. They fill out this information, and once they register, they'll be given a temporary barcode, and will have access to online materials. The other thing we did for Anne Arundel was create a search facet for Fountas and Pinnell reading level data. So this is data that Anne Arundel has in their MARC record. So in this search, Go back up to the result, search facets. So now there is a new search facet which you can enable on Found System to now. Narrow your results by one of their levels. It will show titles that have that specific rating. It will just, you can enable it to display that in the top search results here in the record view. You can also enable it to display in the top main details on the record view. S&P level here, and also the, let me show you where those are located in the library admin. So if you go to searching, search facets, come down to the table of facets, and you'll see that there's a new option for S&P, and so that will enable, if you put that in there, that will enable it. Important to note that the data has to be in your MARC record for this to work. Also, to enable the display of it in the search results page, you go into the search results section, and now there's a new option for show S&P information in the details, search result details. And then finally, in the record, full record display for the main details, there's also another option here to enable it. One thing I want to point out is records that don't have, even if you have those turned on, records that don't have an FTP level associated with them won't display this unless you turn on, it's in the search results also, but if there's no data, it won't show that column, and that's confused even myself today, so just wanted to note that before I moved on. Any questions about that? The other thing we've done is updated the format facet logic to include a new format called Box Books. And this will work for all libraries that have cataloged their Box Books titles. So it will display not as a book, but as its own format, Box Books here in the grouped work. And so yeah, when you look at the grouped works, the other formats will be separate. The book will be separate from Box Books. And in case you haven't heard of these, I'll show you what their description is for what a Box Book is. Right here. It's a book with an audio reader attached to it. And then the other bit of customization work for the interface that we did was we have taken the sidebar links that you can customize for your library and enable and let you have them display both in this final section, the menu. Internally it's called the help section, but you can change the label, and so Anne Arundel changed it to menu. You can display it here or also in the account section. You can display it here in the account section. The way to set that up now, or enable that, is in your library, on your library admin page. You go down to the bottom at your sidebar links. We'll have your link customization here. We have 3 new columns. Show and count, which means this account section. Show and help, which is this section. And then show expanded, which means that accordion section will be open by default when the page first loads. And as you can see, you can choose to have it only show in the My Help section or have it show in both. So you can control which menu categories end up in which of those sections. Any questions about that? And then briefly, we did some final theming touches that I just point out real quick. Anne Arundel wanted to use their own custom font, so their base font is a Google font. So if that was something you could do, it's pretty straightforward to do. Anne Arundel asked me to take out the gradients and the menu options and the accordion. So most likely your menu system will have a little gradient on these, and they're gone. And they didn't want rounded corners, so they have square corners in their menu options. And for implementing ROA calls for Wake County, yes, I think we are really, it's doable at this point. Would you have any concerns, Mark, with Wake County going to the ROA?
No, I think that at this point we're close to being able to do it. So it'll require some testing, but it'd be good to get both Wake County and Anythink on those, I think.
Yeah, there is more functionality there than with the Horizon API integration. One other quick detail that we implemented this release, this will be for everyone, is that found out that Project Fi now has an SMS gateway so that if you want to use texting options, a number that is in Project Fi is now one of those options. And all right, I'll hand it over to Mark.
All right. A few more bug fixes that we'll talk about. Just display of on order. Last release, we had a couple of little issues. So some of the on order items for Sierra libraries, the scoping wasn't working properly. We believe that's working now, but Beth did point out one more issue. So we're going to take a look at that and make sure that that is fixed before the release Thursday night. Also, some e-content records from Sierra didn't work based off some of the new scoping work that we had done in the last release related to getting some of those special URLs working. Let's see. We had done some cleanup for data that shouldn't have been being used. We found out that some of the saved searches were saved for user 0, which was not a valid user in the database. So we went through and deleted those, which then caused some list widgets to stop working. So I apologize for everybody who had to fix list widgets. We've definitely put in steps to make sure that doesn't happen again, make sure that it's easier for us to recover in the future if that does happen. Sorry again, and we've fixed both the root cause and made it harder to happen again. Pascal, did you want to talk about the rest of these bug fixes?
Let me share screen. All right, for frozen hold notices, I found out that for our non-Sierra libraries, we're displaying the Sierra warning for frozen holds. Because in Sierra, if you're the first person in the queue, you can't freeze your hold. So we had to put up that notice. So you'll see this example of that happening. This notice, and it shouldn't appear for non-Sierra libraries. I've fixed this in production everywhere except for AspenCat here. So now you won't see the Sierra notice. I know a couple of libraries have their own notice that properly displays. Another issue that we fixed was our table configuration items, like particularly the search facet list. So you've noticed before they were very tiny boxes, and you could only see a letter, and so it's really hard to read. So I made sure that any of these table style configuration options that had a text box or a select would be wide enough that you could at least read what was there, and just make things much easier to manage. And another thing we've done is that we needed to do so. When you go to My Account, it is supposed to redirect to My Account Home, but we had broken it. Either it was broke or it was always. Anyway, we fixed it so that when you do this, it will do what it's supposed to do is redirect to My Account Home, and then the calculations for My Account Home will send you to one of these My Account pages. So that works with that will work with all sites now after this deployment. And then for Lexile codes, we let me show you an example of what was wrong with Lexile codes. So when you did a search and then you wanted to limit by, so when you did a search and you wanted to search, do the limit by a search facet Lexile code, we had this category right here that was just blank. And this is every title that doesn't have a Lexile code associated with it, and that's a useless facet for you to search by. So we've removed that out of there. So now when we go to the test, you'll see that there's just the coded ones, and you can search by items that do have a Lexile code associated with them.
Could I throw a comment out to the group about that?
Go ahead.
Do you have my sound? Yeah. What you just did to fix something, I would ask people to think about whether that's a correction or not. In all the time that I've been working with faceted navigation with several products, when something doesn't have a value, it's excluded from the results. And I think a none of the above for every one of the facets that we offer would be valuable to someone. This is something that's kind of half thought through. It doesn't make a lot of sense with something like branch, because branch none of the above is really just exposing a data problem to the catalogers. Format none of the above, something that is so uncoded or wrongly coded. It seems to me that having a none of the above is something that's worth doing. But again, this is like half-baked idea. Since you've already done something which is responding to a problem report, then we're kind of reasserting that none of the above is not desirable, but I have my doubts. I just want to kind of stir up the pot a little bit and ask people to think about that going forward.
This is Joe Hunter, and I had the exact same thought on that Lexile. It wouldn't be perfect, but if you chose the none of the above, then you would be more likely to get adult reading material. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's is it worth selecting something to say, I specifically don't want any of those, or
Well, hi,
or just leaving the facet unselected? But
right. This is Ashley at Click. I was kind of curious about how that might work too, since with the Lexile scores more specifically, or AR scores, if you leave something blank, like you don't give it a defined range, so it's like a 0 to 2.5, let's say, it'll bring up everything that doesn't have an AR score because it's looking at that 0. Would that affect the same? I don't know if this is the same issue, but I'm kind of curious to see what happens.
you might have to actually do a 0 to 2.5.
Yeah. Because that was something that we had discovered, that like if you put like 0 to 2.5, then it would bring in everything that had a that didn't have a score. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the same thing.
It's similar but slightly different.
I guess just getting at that point of like getting something that doesn't have that parameter assigned to it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. You could say, I want accelerated reader score 4.5, and you'll find everything that's coded 4.5,
Sure.
but you'll miss everything that wasn't coded at all that should be a 4.5. It's a slippery problem, and I don't think any of the modern search engines have thought this through. And I don't look for a solution today. I just say, let's think about this one now that.
I'll think about it a little bit, and we can put together some options, and then come back and talk about it again at a future meeting, not too far from now.
Yeah, certainly not urgent. It's just, I've worried about this off and on for 10 years, so. Don't worry about it too much more today. Thanks.
All right, I'll continue unless there's any other comments. Okay, a couple of other bugs that we fixed. When we deleted the save searches for list widgets, I discovered that our MySQL backups weren't working properly for Flatirons and AspenCat. So I did fix that. I wish it was fixed before it so I could have saved the saved list, but at least it's fixed now so that if something worse happens, I can recover those sites from that. We did several side loads for Anne Arundel. We did 3 new ones that I hadn't done before: Gale, Cloud Library, and Safari. And so if you have those collections and would like to side load them, I would like to get them in the list and get going with them. They're straightforward. Cloud Library and Gale also have cover images in their marked data, so their side load collections look really sharp too. We also did a side load of the RV Digital magazines and RV Digital audiobooks for Anne Arundel. And then coming down to the additional work we did, one of the bigger things that came up was that is our FTP server is a physical server, and it's crashed once before. IT was able to save it and rescue it, but it's living on borrowed time, so we've been virtualizing it, and that process is ready to be completed. I've recreated every FTP account that I know is being used on the new server. Passwords will be the same. I've recreated the file structures in there. For operations that we are sending data out to other sites, that stuff is already on the new server. For example, all the data that we send to EBSCO for the academics, the several vendors that we send School District 51 data to is on that server as well, already going out. Critical exports to Pika servers like Marmot export and AspenCat's export are already on that. What I want to do is I'm going to have the current URL ftp1.marmot.org point to sftp.marmot.org, and that so the transition should be transparent for most FTP accounts. You shouldn't have to notice. You wouldn't notice an interruption other than maybe files that you'd uploaded previously aren't there anymore. I'm going to do this on Thursday, the same day that we deploy, because for some of the Pika servers, they do need to communicate with the right FTP server directly, so I want to deploy that code the same day that we switch it. And so on Thursday, FTP1 will also point to SFTP. If you do any FTP operations like covers or anything, side loads, anything like that, and you discover a problem, please let me know so I can get on top of it and fix it. But I think this should be fairly undisruptive. Some other work we did was, of course, this last release, we switched the name of the Zinio sideload collection for Marmot to RB Digital, RB Digital formerly Zinio, and RB Digital for back issues formerly Zinio. And unless there's any comments on that, I'll hand it over to Mark.
All right, thanks, Pascal. So just wanted to talk a little bit about the latest Sierra upgrade for the people that have been monitoring what's going on there. With the latest release of Sierra 3.1, due dates stopped being exported from the ILS, which causes Pika to think that everything is checked out. We have some workarounds from III in terms of, well, the workaround is we can manually export the data and run the index completely manually. We have talked kind of all the way up the chain with III to see about getting a fix. They have confirmed that a fix is not coming anytime soon. They think it is probably months away, not days or weeks. So we are at the point where we need to code an alternative solution. We're going to stop waiting for them to fix it. We believe that we can do this with a combination of Sierra DNA and being smart in the export. So our main concern is performance with that, but our intention is to code a fix in the upcoming release, likely to be deployed as a hot patch as soon as we get it working. So it's been a distraction. People have either not been able to get good exports or have not been able to have online payments. So we are looking forward to getting a workaround in place. And then, so any questions on that before we move on? All right, then I'll turn it over to Jordan to talk about what's coming in the next release.
Okay, did we mention the Garfield website migration?
No, you can talk about that if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, just while I'm sharing the screen. We also are moving Garfield County's website from their servers to our servers, and it ended up taking a bit more time than we thought. It was kind of tricky because of the hosting system they were on before, but I think that was in the release notes. Yeah, the last thing. But our release priorities for the next release, nothing too surprising here. We do still have some cleanup for Anne Arundel, but they will launch in August, so that's great. Same thing for Carl X. They launched last month, but we do have some things to clean up, particularly since this is a school public library partnership, and we had a few extra tasks related to the beginning of school, particularly that we're still working on. Mentioned the Garfield website just now. That is set up and will also launch in August. We just need to get it set up on the live server. This one, the fourth one, is one that we were not expecting that Mark was just talking about, and we do think will actually take quite a bit of time. But it's important just for all of you to have the functionality that you need, and so that we are not doing, particularly Pascal is not doing manual processes that take a good amount of time every few days. So these four are probably going to be the bulk of the upcoming release. We will continue working on side loads just because we don't like to get too far behind in those. And then we have quite a few unknowns with these, particularly the III export. But we want to work on archive stuff next, catching up particularly with Redbook, and then some other things for Eagle and some archive bugs and search bugs. So these two right here are kind of programmer dependent on who has time, but what we work on there. Any questions about our plans for August? And then other completed work, we talked about most of this. I don't think there's anything here other than to say last meeting we talked about this potential solution, and then we implemented it actually pretty quickly. As always, we have the PICA roadmap available at the bottom. And these priorities pretty much reflect what you saw on the last map. And if you're ever curious about what we're thinking, what would be coming up next, we do know that later this year we will be working on additional e-content improvements, as well as some EDS and bento box integration that our academic libraries have been waiting on for quite a while. So I know we haven't looked at this for a few months, so I thought about just pulling it up, reminding you it was there. You can always find it here on this document. Conversation topics. Last time, or actually a few times ago, we talked about a specification for what alternate titles when there are a bunch of holds on a specific nonfiction title. And I just really wanted to say thank you for a bunch of you commented on this specification. I actually have it up over here, and had great input. So we have a good specification to work off of. We should be working on that this release. It's not related to a project, so it doesn't quite make it on this board, but it's our intention to begin working on that this month, or just do it this month. And I think that that's going to make placing holds on nonfiction titles great for everyone. So thank you for everyone that took the time to comment on that. I really liked that process. I know it's hard to get feedback in these meetings, so I think it's well worth the time for me to write that out and then give all of you some weeks to comment on it. I didn't want to get too far ahead with conversation topics, you know, with a pileup of, because anything that we talk about, I want to implement quickly. But we did actually have that mini conversation earlier about facets and what to do when there's no data for a particular facet field. So I'm going to start thinking about that, and I think we'll probably end up either talking about that next month or relatively soon. So that's what's coming up. Any questions about any of this? Okay, then I'm going to hand it over to John for reports from libraries on special projects.
Yeah, this is our open session. If anyone wants to bring up anything they're working on, PICA related or discovery related, that is. And if not, I think thing is training topic.
Hi everyone, it's Tammy, and the training topic for this month is browse categories. Now, in order to be able to create, edit, browse categories, you need to have the role or permission of library admin, library manager, and location manager. If you have those roles, you need to first be logged in. And what I plan to show you today is how to create a browse category using search results from facets and from a list. So the first thing we're going to do is do a search. So let's say you wanted a category for Halloween. We're going to choose Halloween on this one. So if you look, there's quite a few number of books here. So we want to limit it. And let's say we want to limit it to book. And then let's say, yeah, we'll do maybe fiction, as well as maybe the subject of just Halloween. And then maybe we want to say it's juvenile fiction. So now that we have all the applied filters that we want for this browse category, go down to the bottom of the page. At the very bottom it says add to home page as browse category. You have to name it. And I'm going to do something generic, do test. And you can also add a subcategory. And the way the subcategories work is, let's say, for example, you had created other categories for the Halloween books, and maybe you decided DVDs, movies, something like that. You can add these subcategories to the list so patrons can have a choice as to which ones they want to pick. In this case, we're just going to create the one. Now it said it was added successfully, and we're just going to go up and click home to refresh, and there it is. But now you're realizing I really limited it to juvenile fiction and fiction, but I just said Halloween books. So now I want to go in and edit it. So to edit, click on the account information, PICA configuration, and you have the browse categories. And also know that the online documentation is here as well. And I'm going to type in test, find it, and here it is, the test Halloween books. So when I go to edit this, I can do more than just change what my filters were. I can decide to change the label. And instead of calling it Halloween books, maybe I can call it children's books. I can also change it from everyone to my home library, the branch, the library. And I could, if I decided at this point to add subcategories, I could add them here. And I could change it from unscoped to current library or current location. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the fiction part of this and just use those two facets. At this point, we're going to save it. Now, another note to make you aware of is when you're editing a browse category, if this is a browse category that's shared by everyone, when you change that information, you change it for everyone using that category. So it's best to create a category if you need to sort or have anything done with the filters that you create for yourself, your library, your branch. So now, we come back here, and look again. You see it just has the filter of book and Halloween. Now Halloween's over with. and we want to remove this. So if you want to remove it, you go to Account, type a configuration. You wouldn't go to the browse categories. You're going to go to your system. So you type in, oh, you would probably just have your system there and limit it. And you would come down to the browse categories. And here they all listed here. And I must have clicked on some extra ones because they're there too. But so let's say we're going to remove it. We'll start with the Halloween. And it says, are you sure you want to delete this? And even though it says delete, you're not really deleting it. You're just removing it from the browse category. We'll remove these as well. And we go back and we save and refresh, you'll see it's gone. Although this one right here, the New York Times, is a really good example of one that has some subcategories. So right now it's on the hardcover, but if you click on some of the others, you can change it and limit it to what's there. That's how the subcategories work. Now that it's over with, it's a year later. Now I want to use it again. I really like this browse category and I want to use it again. Now you would do this, what I'm about to show you, you would do this to use your own browse category, to use a list, something else. I'm going to show you two different ways that you can do this. You can go into Account and type in Configuration, Browse Categories. And if you go down to the bottom of the page, Add New Browse Category. Now with this one, there's no labels, there's no text ID, so this is something you'd have to fill out. So you'd put in with the label of what you're looking for. Now the text ID should have your libraries. There's something that identifies your library when you're filling it out. You can then limit to whatever you want, start filling these out, but you would click here in order to find your list or to find your other browse category. You can do it that way. Another way to do it is to go into your library system, go back down to the browse category, and go to New, and then you can just start typing it in, although sometimes typing the first letter, so we test. And I'm not going to do anything else just yet, and I'm just going to save it. And now when we go to look, it's not the first one. It's the last one. So now I want to sort it. So if you go to Pica Configuration, go back to your library system. Go to the Browse category. And now I want to take this one and bring it to the top. Come down here and save it. Refresh. And now it's back to where I want it to be. And you can do the same thing with the sorts, move it anywhere you want within all these other categories. So that is it as far as the search results. We've gone over editing, removing, reusing, and sorting. So the next thing I'm going to do is to do it from a search facet. Does anyone have any questions before I go on? No?
Tammy, I don't know, this might be for development, but there is a chat about some issues with browse categories. I don't know if someone wants to read that.
Yeah, so the issue is, if you scroll down a little bit to show your the covers of the browse category. Mm-hmm. So the issue is they are being sorted, except that they're being displayed in columns. So the first column is, that's the first title, and then the title below it is the next one. So the sorting it is confusing when you're like trying to sort by. We have a ticket in, and we do know what to do to fix it, but we haven't done it yet.
And the reason it was done that way originally was for the responsive design of the site so that it appeared in the correct order on mobile.
One little thing I would like to recommend is that the description section of the browse category, that isn't displayed anywhere. That's for you. If there's something particular about your browse category that you're going to forget, I always put notes in there. Or if I've had problems with if the facets don't work the way I want, I always put notes in the description section about what I've tried before. I just found that very handy and pass it on.
Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is do a browse category from a search result. And what we're going to do is we're going to do new fiction. Okay, so this is a very large collection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow it by using book. And then I will go to fiction. And this next part is the most important part, especially if you want to do something that's new. You want to limit by added in the last. And normally most people choose a month, but it's your decision as to how often you order things and how often you catalog. So now we have the filters of book, fiction, and added in the last month. So I'm going to come again, go down to the bottom of the page and do add to home page as browse category. And then I have to name it. I can do again. And again, I could do subcategories if I wanted to, but I'm just going to do the one at this point. And we go back up to the top, refresh. I now have my new fiction. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is a list. But before we get to the list, we have a few things to go over with to explain how you get the list. Now, when you're logged in, you have to, under Pika Configuration Library System, under searching, I believe, yeah, searching, this public list to include. If your library has one of the drop downs that says no list, no matter what, you will not have your list as your browse category. So that has to be changed. Now you can do lists from your library. You can do lists from library publishers only, and what that is another role that is given to someone in a library if you want them to be able to make lists public. And there's also allowing lists from all list publishers, which would be all of Marmot, or all lists in general. And another thing too is I'm not going to show you how to create the list. We do have that information under our marmot.org site, our website under Pika documentation, and then we have the creating a list. So I have already created the list. So what I'm going to do is I could do one of two things, several things. I can go back in and under Pika configuration library system, I could go here and go back to browse category and new and look for my list that I've already created. Or I could do the other search, which is to go count, browse categories, and again go to the bottom of the page and click on the button down here. But instead, I'm going to do something much simpler. I am going to go to my list, and I created one already, World War II archived materials, and I'm going to click on that list, and they have a great button here called Add to Homepage. So I'm just going to click on that. I'm going to name it, and again, I could have some subcategories if I wanted them. And now, when we update, here it is, and here's everything that's on there. So you can look to see what's there, and maybe you decide, I really don't want everything that's on there, so you can go back into your list right here, and you can either add more things or you can delete it. And let's say I don't want a campaign. I decided I don't want it on my list. And then if you refresh it, maybe not yet. Okay.
The browse category cache will have to.
Okay. Is that like a control F5?
No.
No, even more than that?
Sorry.
Okay. I didn't actually delete it to practices, but I thought in theory it was going to work. But it will work in time once the cache is gone, and you will have just those two. And I think that is it. Do we have any questions? So this is from library. I'm not sure who that is. This was the other place. We had a sort order issue. We want the ability to have the most recent added in the list at the top.
Talking about ordering the order of a list, so you can control how the list is ordered on your My List page. And so the question is that should reflect in the browse category also. it should at least follow the columns process. So if it doesn't do that, we'll put it a bug ticket for that, and we'll get it.
So we're talking, you want me to go to the list?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah. Click on your list.
sorry. And if I was to do something different?
So at this point, the Veterans Remember should be the first item,
Mhm.
like in the browse category, and then the World War II would be in the column underneath it. And so the item that you deleted was ahead of.
Yes, it was.
So it was the first one. So yeah, it's the same issue. It's just again, it's that we display the sorting in columns instead of rows. Well, one last thing about browse categories for archive materials, I think you still have to make a list. The only way to display archive materials in a browse category is a list. I don't think an archive search translates to a.
I couldn't get it to do it without adding it to a list. But the best part is something like this. If you go back, there's conveniently everything's linked below it. Okay. Anything else?
I think that does it. Thank you, Tammy, for that. Our next meeting is going to be the day after Labor Day, September 5th, Tuesday. Normal reminders will go up, but you might want to mark that down now since you won't be thinking about it on your 3-day weekend. With that, unless there's anything else anyone wants to add or ask, we can call this a meeting. I'll just give a few seconds for that. Alrighty. Look for the video recording and everything else that Tammy sends out in the next few days. And other than that, we will see everyone back here in September. Have a good rest of your day and week. Thanks, everyone.